بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم وقل رب زدني علما. قال الإمام النووي رحمه الله تبارك وتعالى ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين. قال باب ستر عورات المسلمين والنهي عن إشاعتها لغير ضرورة. So this is a new chapter. This is the chapter which is basically dealing with covering the faults of Muslims and the prohibition of exposing and spreading the faults or the deficiencies or, things that Muslims would not like to hear about. We heard earlier about ghiba, about mentioning people about things that they don't want to hear behind their back. So even more disastrous is not only mentioning it, but spreading it about, and covering it about. So, in that context, first of all, he mentions an ayat from the Quran and then a number of hadith. قال الله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين يحبون أن تشيع الفاحشة في الذين آمنوا لهم عذاب أليم في الدنيا والآخرة. Surah An-Nur. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this context that indeed those who would like to see lewdness and iniquity and foul conduct spread. And this is basically what happens when we mention the bad actions or the wrong activities of anyone. It spreads around in the community. And not only it spreads around and people come to know things that they otherwise should have been concealed, it also is an impetus for the acceleration of that kind of behavior. Therefore, Imam Muslim rahimahullah ta'ala says, if there's a fitna which starts, so the best way to stop it is stop talking about it. Of course, when it gets out of hand like a fire, if it spreads, then it has to be extinguished. However, so to ensure that such type of fires of lewdness and iniquity don't spread, so to cover the faults of Muslims and do not, announce these things or spread them around in society. So those people who would like to do such, and they take some type of pleasure, it's a kind of a sort of a satanic pleasure that people get out of spreading the faults of others. So give them the glad tidings of a terrible punishment. In other words, sarcastically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning to them, about them, that they will be the recipients of a severe chastisement as such. And then from a hadith, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يستر عبدا في الدنيا إلا ستره الله يوم القيامة. رواه Muslim. And the opposite of that would be, as this hadith is pointing to, that never would a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cover over or protect and not expose the sins and the wrongdoings of another abd, another slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover his faults on the Day of Judgment. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is, as we've probably mentioned many times, when we talked about guarding the tongue. So one of the main aspects of guarding the tongue is not to expose or talk about other people. And if we mention something about other people that they're not happy about, and that's ghiba, and that's worse than committing fornication with one's mother. And it's a very, very serious offense, and it causes untold grief and problems in society. And in the Surah An-Nur, in this particular ayat, it was revealed in the context of those who actually, accuse Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha of misconduct, as probably you're aware of that story. And that incident was so traumatic in society, it nearly brought about the animosity between Aus and Khazraj, which Nabi alayhi salatu had worked for years to distinguish, and Islam had brought to finish that animosity. And it went to the extent that almost they were about to be at war with one another. So this is not just something that would affect the individual who's being exposed. It can have farther reaching impact on the entirety of society. So it's a very critical characteristic of Islamic society and the character of a Muslim. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us, the cognizance of this and protect this concept and promote it. Ameen. Thumma ameen wa akhir da'wana. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.